When archaeologists began cataloging the bones of our earliest ancestors, they kept running into something they couldn't immediately explain. Across thousands of specimens, pulled from cave sites scattered across southern and eastern Africa, spanning a time period measured in millions of years, the same marks kept appearing. Not similar marks. The same marks. Identical puncture patterns. Identical positioning on the skull and upper spine. Identical drag signatures left on the bone surface. The kind of consistency you only get when one predator is hunting one type of prey systematically across an extraordinary stretch of time. To put that consistency into perspective, a single cave site in South Africa called Swartkrans contained the remains of over 150 early hominids. When researchers examined them, the majority showed the same specific damage. 2 puncture wounds at the base of the skull, spaced to match the canines of a large cat, angled to suggest the killing blow came from behind and above. The lead researcher on that project, a paleontologist named Bob Brain, eventually did something that made the case almost undeniable. He compared the hominid skulls to baboon skulls collected from the dens of modern leopards, animals that leopards still hunt and cache in trees today, and the match was near perfect. Same entry points. Same canine spacing. Same angle of attack. Carried out by the same animal. Millions of years apart. The animal most people don't guess. The predator responsible for the marks on our ancestors was the leopard. And before anyone feels underwhelmed by that answer, understand what it actually means in this context. Modern leopards are already considered among the most effective predators alive, capable of killing animals far heavier than themselves and hauling the carcass vertically into a tree to prevent theft by lions or hyenas. But the leopards that specifically targeted early hominids had something even more significant going for them. Over millions of years, they had learned us. Not just our scent or our movement patterns, but our specific vulnerabilities. Our tendency to approach water sources at predictable times. Our habit of foraging in small, separated groups. Our complete inability, for the vast majority of our evolutionary history, to detect an ambush predator that had decided not to be seen. These cats had essentially specialized in hunting a single primate lineage across a timescale that makes all of recorded history look like a rounding error. Why not the obvious suspects? The 2 animals most people assume were the primary killers of early humans are the saber-toothed cat and the spotted hyena. Both were present. Both were dangerous. And both left evidence of interactions with hominids. But neither produced the kind of consistent, repeated, site-after-site kill pattern that the leopard did. Saber-toothed cats like Dinofelis and Meganterion were certainly capable of killing hominids and almost certainly did, but the fossil evidence of direct predation is comparatively rare and scattered. Hyenas are responsible for accumulating large numbers of hominid bones at various sites, but the bite patterns hyenas leave are distinct, focused on crushing and consuming bone rather than the clean puncture of a canine killing strike. The leopard marks are different. They are precise, they are positioned specifically for killing rather than feeding, and they repeat the same technique, applied to the same anatomical location, across species and across millions of years of sites. The perfect machine for hunting us. What made the leopard such a durable and persistent threat wasn't just its physical capability, though that was considerable. It was the method. Leopards are ambush predators that close distance in near silence, often over many minutes, before striking at extremely close range, typically under 5 meters. For early hominids moving through dense vegetation, approaching a water source at dawn or dusk, or separated from the group while foraging, this made the leopard functionally invisible until the moment of contact. There was no warning that consistently worked against an animal that simply refused to announce itself. And the leopard had another advantage that most predators don't. It is a generalist. It can operate in dense forest, open savanna, rocky terrain, and riverine woodland, every environment that early hominids also used. A saber-toothed cat is a specialist. A hyena operates differently at night versus day. The leopard is effective across all of it, which meant there was no habitat that offered reliable safety. Wherever early humans went, the leopard could follow. And based on the fossil record, it did. Why so many of our ancestors ended up in caves? The dragging behavior is what sealed the leopard's dominance as a predator of early humans, and it has an almost ironic consequence for the archaeological record. Unlike lions or hyenas, which eat on the ground and can sometimes be driven off a kill by a coordinated group response, a leopard that has hauled its kill into a tree is essentially untouchable. No group of early hominids was recovering that body, which means the kills were lost completely, along with whatever tools, knowledge, or social role that individual had held. But here is where it gets strange. Leopards used cave-adjacent trees as feeding platforms, returning to the same locations repeatedly across generations. Bones fell from those trees. They accumulated on cave floors over hundreds of thousands of years. They mineralized. And millions of years later, archaeologists found them, which means we found our ancestors in those caves specifically because a leopard put them there. The very sites that gave us the richest picture of early human life are, in large part, leopard kill archives. The sheer volume of hominid remains at sites like Swartkrans, accumulated across an enormous time span, implies something that researchers still find striking. Leopard predation on early humans wasn't occasional. It was routine. Certain estimates suggest it may have been the single leading cause of unnatural death for Australopithecus in southern Africa during specific periods. Not rival hominid groups. Not saber-tooths. Not drought. The leopard. The ones who survived. Not every encounter was fatal. And that is where the evidence becomes more specific, because a significant number of hominid bones show healed injuries. Damage that occurred, was survived, and left a permanent mark in the bone. Healed puncture wounds on the hands and forearms consistent with defensive injuries, a hominid throwing their arms up against an incoming strike. Healed damage to the shoulder and upper back from an animal landing from behind and above. Several specimens show evidence of multiple separate healed wounds accumulated across years, meaning the same individual had survived more than one leopard encounter in their lifetime. These are not exceptional cases. They are common enough across the fossil record to constitute a pattern. When you overlay the kill marks against the healed injuries and look at the overall frequency across multiple sites and multiple species of early human, the picture that emerges is not one of isolated predation events. It is a picture of continuous, multi-generational pressure that touched essentially every individual who lived through this period. Every early human who made it to adulthood in southern or eastern Africa had either been attacked by a leopard, watched someone in their group get taken, or both. It was not a risk they occasionally faced. It was a permanent feature of existence, as constant and as lethal as disease, and far more sudden. What this did to us. That pressure had consequences that reach further than individual deaths. The consistent threat of ambush predation is considered one of the key drivers behind the early hominid shift toward tighter group living. A lone individual near water at dusk was exactly what a leopard was looking for. A coordinated group of 10 or 12 was a fundamentally different risk calculation. Groups that remained cohesive, communicated threats effectively, and slept in defensible positions survived at higher rates. Over generations, that pressure selected for social behavior, the same foundational structures that would eventually scale into language, culture, and everything more complex that followed. Some researchers have pushed this further. The specific cognitive demands of living under consistent ambush predation, anticipating a hidden threat, remembering where attacks had occurred, reading the behavior of the group for alarm signals, communicating danger before it arrived, were applied daily, across millions of years, under genuine life and death stakes. The leopard, by being so consistently lethal, may have been one of the animals that actively accelerated early human intelligence. Fire changed everything. Once Homo erectus and later populations began using controlled fire reliably, established firmly by around 400,000 years ago, the leopard's primary advantage disappeared. Fire keeps large cats at a distance. A group sleeping around maintained flames is not a target. Combined with more sophisticated tools and increasingly coordinated group responses, early humans made a gradual transition from reliable prey to something the leopard had genuine reason to avoid. But that shift took millions of years. For the vast majority of the time that anything recognizable as a human walked on two legs, the leopard was there. The same marks at the base of the skull, appearing site after site, species after species, continent after continent. A record so consistent and so specific that it constitutes as close to a single clear fact about early human life as the fossil record is capable of producing. The next time you see a leopard in a documentary, completely still in a tree, eyes fixed on something far below, the kind of absolute stillness that means it has already made a decision, remember that for most of our evolutionary history, we were the thing it was watching. And most of the time, we had no idea. Thanks for watching, and until next time.